Hello everyone, welcome to Winged Horse Designs. This week we're going to do this cute little, oh, light's bright here, let's see. There we go. We're going to do this cute little double slider Ghirardelli treat holder card. Yeah, so to make this cute little double slider card, we are going to use the Thoughtful Blooms stamp set this time, and we're going to use this leafy pattern here. We're going to use the thank you, and we're going to use this itty bitty flower, this background flower, and this flower from this stamp set. This is a celebration stamp set, so you can get this for free if you purchase a product order of $50 or more. And then we're going to bring in the number 2 circle, if you count from the inside to the outside, the number 2 circle, stitch circle punch or die that we're going to use for our circle on that. Ink colors, we're going to use Pacific Point to match our paper. We're going to use Granny Apple Green, and we're going to use Petal Pink. We're going to bring in a little bit of Stella. You won't be able to see it probably too well on the camera here, but I did put Stella on these flowers because we can't really put rhinestones on these. They'll interfere with the sliding mechanism here, so I did a little Stella on those flowers, just so we have a little bit of shine on the inside as well. We'll need some tear-in tape. We're going to use the Petal Pink metallic edged ribbon. We're going to use some mini glue dots, and then for our cardstock, get all of this out of our way here. Our cardstock measures 2 3/4 inches by 7.5 inches. We'll score that in a bit. And then you're going to need a piece that measures 2 inches by 2 5 inches, or by 2 5/8 inches, and 2 inches by 3 1/8 inches, and a piece of Whisper White for the slider that measures 1 7/8 by 2 1/2. And then of course you'll need scrap pieces for the whites on to decorate the top. So I'm going to set those aside, and I'm going to bring in the Simply Score tool, and we'll do the scoring. So we're going to score along the 7.5 inch side at 3/8 of an inch. And I like the scoreboard because they're in 1/8 of an inch. We're going to score at 3/4 of an inch, at 2 7/8, at 3 1/4 inches, and at 5 3/8. I'll get this out of the way. So what you have is you have this piece with the 2 smaller pieces here and 2 larger panels here. This large panel on the right is going to be the part that works our sliding mechanism for, it's the piece that attaches these and becomes our sliding mechanism. So before we go any further, I am using, you could use anything, you could cut it out. I'm just going to go ahead and use just the edge of the tailored tag punch, but you could just cut this out with scissors. And so I'm going to kind of get in the middle, and I'm just going to take off about 1/8 of an inch sliver here. And same thing on the other side. So I'm just going to flip it over. Do the same thing on the other side. So we have, again, you could just use scissors if you want to, so that you have these 2 notches on either side, the top and the bottom, as you're holding it lengthwise, the top and the bottom. So then we're going to bring in a piece of a baggie, a Ziploc baggie, a 1/4 Ziploc baggie, and you're going to cut that in a strip that's 1/2 inch. And so I cut off the bottom, Then I cut a 1/2 inch, and it cuts nicely on the paper, on a paper trimmer. And then I just simply snip the two sides, so you get two pieces, and we only need one piece, so you save one piece for later. So with this being the top, we're going to put a piece of tearing tape on here, being careful not to extend it over the edges of our baggie. And we don't want it to extend over because we don't want it to catch. So we're going to hold it right here next to the top. We're going to wrap it around, and we're going to pull it snug but not too snug, okay? We don't want it to be real snug because we want it to slide. So we need to take that adhesive off. This is probably the hardest part of the whole thing, is getting this adhesive to release. And I have misplaced my take your pick tool, so we'll just use the tip of the scissors to get a hold of it and lift it off. Okay, so I pulled the whole thing off. I want it to stick to my baggie, so let's just go ahead and take a bone folder and kind of burnish it against that baggie, and then peel that piece off. Like I said, this is the most difficult part. There we go. So we have that right underneath the top notch. We're going to wrap it around, come back over, and we want it snug but not too snug, and we're just going to adhere it down. Then we're going to take scissors and we're going to trim off the excess. Okay. So this is our little piece that's going to provide our sliding mechanism. So I'm going to put another piece of tearing tape right over the top of that one. We're going to flip it over and put another piece on the other side. So what I want to show you is, so when it's folded over, you have one on the right side and one on the left side. You want them to be on opposing sides. Okay, so let's go ahead and fold and burnish all these score lines real quick. Eventually we'll need a piece of tearing tape here, so I'm going to go ahead and do that while I have the tearing tape out. And I'm getting up close to the score line. And we'll set that aside for a moment, and we'll start working on these slider pieces. I'll just kind of set this up in the corner so you can see it. So we're going to take the longer of the blues, and we're going to bring in the scalloped tag punch. And we're going to cut one end with a scalloped tag punch. And then I'm bringing in the detailed trio punch, and we're going to use the corner rounder, and we're going to take and round off all the other corners. So now we've rounded off all these corners. So we want to stamp on this. And so I'm going to start with Pacific Point, and I'm going to stamp my thank you. And we want our greeting to be over here on the left, because not all of this is going to slide out when you slide it out. So we want the focal point to be over on this side. So I'm going to stamp thank you in there, because this is just a cute little gift to give someone, just to say thank you. You don't really always have to give them a lot. So I'm going to stamp thank you. And then I'm going to set that aside, and I'm going to bring in the Granny Apple Green. And I'm going to bring in these leaves. And I'm going to stamp off onto some scrap paper so that we use second generation, and I'm just going to bring in some leaves and stamp them off because it's okay if not all of those show. And I'm also going to bring in the circle that I did ahead of time with the stitch circle, and I'm going to stamp on that. Same thing, stamp off and create a second generation. And I'm just going to go ahead and switch it and put in just a little bit more. Let's see, this way. And the reason I'm doing just a little bit more is when I was doing my prototype, I accidentally dropped my stamp, and I kind of like where the little bit of extra showed up. So this time we're going to do it on purpose. Then we're going to bring in our Petal Pink. We're going to bring in the background piece, and again, we're going to use second generation, so we're going to stamp off and stamp one in the middle of that greenery, another one off in this corner, and another one down in this corner. And then we're going to come and bring in some scrap, and we're going to stamp three of them that we will punch out. So I'm going to do second generation on these as well. Let's do one extra one just in case. And then let's bring in the detailed one, and we'll stamp this one full strength. And they don't even have to match up perfectly, because then you get kind of a watercolor color or background. And then we're going to stamp over these as well. So this Petal Pink is a really soft, pretty color. And then I'll go ahead and put that away. Before we close up the Pacific Blue, or Pacific Point Blue, we're going to go ahead and stamp in. You've got these little tiny edges here, so we're just going to finish off those little stems with just a few more. We're going to put the little bitty blue ones there. We're going to do the same thing over here on this piece. I'm just going to put in a few extras here. And then I felt that the blue needed a little something. So this is this panel right here. So it's right after your two smaller pieces. It's this panel right in here. And I'm going to bring in, I'm going to clean off this one, the leafy one, and I'm going to bring it back in. And we're going to stamp that in blue, second generation again, so stamp off. We're just going to stamp it over here just to give a little bit of something off on this edge. And it's okay if it goes over the edges. And I think we'll do it a second time because we're not really going to put flowers there. We just want a little bit of something on this side. And now let's punch our flowers and then we'll start assembly. So I'm using the small bloom punch. It's also a celebration item. This is a $100 item, so for every $100, so if you spend $100, you can get this for free. These celebration items, of course, are while supplies last. But there's a rumor, actually it's not a rumor, they have told us that this punch will carry over into the new catalog. So we only need 3 of those, so I just punched out 3. So let's start on this piece. So let's adhere this piece to this piece. And let's go ahead and do our wink of Stella, which is just a little bit of glitter. Very, very subtle glitter. So let's start talking about our assembly. This is the piece that's going to have, okay, we're going to turn it this way. This is the piece that's going to have our Ghirardelli chocolate on it. So we want it to come to our right. So we need to get, here we go again, that hard part, getting that adhesive off, the backing off of it. And we're going to just center this in that panel and adhere that down. So when you close this up, actually goes, oh, wait a minute, let me get this going here. I got this on backwards. Needs to be, so we want our adhesive over on this side. So we're going to just stick this down. And then it will pull this way. But this one needs to then pull this way. So it needs to be glued face down. So we're going to flip it over and this is going to glue face down. Again, get that backing off. And we're going to center that on this side. So now when you bring up this piece and you tuck this under, when we have our ribbon attached, it will slide this way. So thank you will slide out and our Ghirardelli will slide here. So let's go ahead and put our box together, our little holder box together. So we want this to come up over and we want to tuck this in behind this flap. To help get that lined up, if you just fold on that crease, it'll line up just perfectly there. Okay, so when we attach our ribbon, it will slide out this way. So let's finish off this piece real quick. I'm just going to use some mini glue dots to attach these flowers. I'm going to put one in the middle of my greenery. And two more on the other side here. And then I'm going to pop this with dimensionals. So we'll just put some dimensionals on our circle. We're just going to adhere that over here on the left side. Let's go ahead and bring in our, I'm going to bring in some Petal Pink Rhinestone gems and put it in the centers of those. So these are, whoops, these are square, but they still work for the centers of the flowers. You could put in the larger ones if you wanted to. I chose to use the smaller ones. And all we need now is our little piece of ribbon and our Ghirardelli chocolate. So we're going to use about 6 inches of ribbon. And we're going to feed this through our mechanism. So I'm going to feed up. I learned this from Paper Pixies. So you come from the back up, come up, wrap around that tail, come back, come through from the back again, tuck it underneath this loop. She had a fancy name for it. I can't remember what it was, and I think it was named after somebody that she learned it from. And then just pull these tight. And then we can trim off our excess. And all we need now is to put our Ghirardelli chocolate on. Sometimes these extra pieces of the Ghirardelli stick out, so I like to take some mini glue dots and glue those pieces down to the back of my Ghirardelli chocolate. So I'm just going to put 2 glue dots here, and I'm just going to fold this excess over, and I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. Because they're still going to get it open. If you're like me, there's nothing stopping me getting chocolate open. And then I'm going to put a little glue dot in one corner and another glue dot in the opposite corner. And I'm going to center this Ghirardelli chocolate onto this. And now they just slide in and out. So how cute is that? It just slides out. You have Ghirardelli chocolate on one side, and you have a thank you on the other side. A fun little, small little treat to make for someone, to give them, just to say thank you for whatever. Enjoy this week's project, and next week I'll be back with something different. Actually, I think you're going to like it. It's a little bit bigger box. It'll hold a lot more, but it's a different angled box, so I think you'll really like next week. Have a great week, everyone. Happy trails.